time is nigh. All right, we're going to begin now. I hate waiting. It's very impatient, and I'm glad you guys are with me here on this. You know, here we are riding the wave of new music inspired by books. Woo! What a ride, people. And here we are, holiday times with the families and everything, and we're doing this book with this incredible book by Mira Jacob about families and family, in so many different senses of the word, and I love that about this book. And if this is your first time at Bushwick Book Club, let me just explain to you, we don't know what's going to happen. We never know what's going to happen. These are all brand new songs in response to the book. All the musicians, artists here read the book and wrote these new pieces in response to it. I haven't heard half of them, quite frankly, and I prefer it that way because it makes it more like Christmas for me. And because then you just don't, you're like opening, you're surprised every time, and it's pretty darn delightful. But you know what's boring? Talking about delight. Let's just have our delight. Our first delight is having Mira here to read for us from the book. Please welcome author Mira Jacob.
Hi, you guys. So I'm so excited about this. It's kind of strange and stupid. I feel like my brain erased itself 5 times today. When I would remember this was happening, I'd be like, poof, amazing life. And then, okay, good. I feel good about that. We're in that together. I'm going to read you. So you know what's really fun about reading to a group of people that is mostly familiar with the book is I can read a scene that I don't normally read because it's a little more of an intimate scene and you have to know a few things. But if you haven't read the book, just so you know, this is a book about an Indian American family in New Mexico. The son, he was really angry, and he was he's sort of a very politically astute, overweight kid who suddenly sheds his baby fat and becomes very beautiful and falls in love and dies in short order. And so this scene in specific is from the moment when his girlfriend, his American girlfriend, comes for the first time to his house to talk to his mother. And this is all told, by the way, from the little sister's point of view. Her name is Amina. The doorbell rang. Up on the stoop, Amina dropped her cigarette across the laces of her Adidas, which began to smoke immediately. Shit, she whacked them. The whole smoking thing was not going well. Despite diligent practice every evening, she was no better at inhaling than she had been in the spring, and she was actually worse at holding the damn things. Why did they always insist with jumping from her hands? What was she doing wrong? Fucking Akhil, she thought. Climbing through his window, it was another new habit, always thinking fucking before Akhil. Fucking Akhil should have taught me how to smoke, and how to do fucking trig, and how to pack a fucking bowl. Now I'm fucked by everything I don't fucking know. I'm gonna walk down the hallway, flipping lights on and trying to wipe the smell of smoke from her hands. The doorbell rang again. Coming, she yelled loudly, passing her parents' bedroom door and half-heartedly hoping that Kamala would come out with some level of concern about who is at the door or why. But no, of course not. Charles Manson could have been ringing with the entire family in a bag of knives, and Kamala probably would have just waited in bed for them to dismember her. Amina opened the door. Hey, it was not the Manson family. It was Paige Anderson, looking beautiful and out of place, like a deer at the edge of a paved road. Amina stared at her, every normal-sounding greeting drying up in her throat. It wasn't so much that she hadn't seen Paige since the accident she had, alone at school, sitting with various books plastered over her face. But somehow, the reality of her, the bob grown past her shoulders, body tucked into a somber navy dress, cheeks still permanently flushed, felt disconcerting. She was so real standing there, so fraught and insistent and alive. It was like looking at a bare beating heart. Can I come in? Paige asked. Here? Amina thought, to this house? But her body moved aside like it was some normal thing and Paige walked in. Behind her, Amina caught a glimpse of a figure in the passenger seat of the Andersons' Volvo in the driveway. Is that Jamie? What? Paige looked anxiously over her shoulder. Oh, yeah. He didn't want me to come alone. Does he want to come in? Oh, no, he's just keeping me company. I was hoping I might talk to your parents. I'm going to shut the front door. My parents? Your dad? He's still at work. What about your mom? My mom? Amina said, face hot from catching what felt like some sort of repeating disease, one in which you were doomed to echo someone else's bad ideas instead of strenuously objecting to them. She's in bed. Instantly, whatever had been powering the light in Paige's face, nervousness, anticipation, bravery, was snuffed out. Her shoulders dropped and she looked lost, the foyer rising up around her. When her eyes moved to the stairs that darkened the landing above them, Amina felt sorry for her. You want to go up? What? To his room. It's upstairs. Oh. Paige blinked several times. Okay, yes. Akhil's school pictures lined the hall, and Paige stared at them with the intensity of someone trying to find the "You Are Here" stamp on a mall map. She stared at his younger photos, 3rd grade, buck teeth, 5th grade, buck teeth and mustache, before stopping at his senior picture, the one taken right before he'd met her. Her forehead pleated. He never invited me here, she said, and then looked at Amina like that fact was important somehow, like it was a mark against her instead of the family. Amina motioned to Akhil's room. You can go in if you want. Paige nodded, walking past her quickly, but when she entered the room, she stopped suddenly, as though she'd hit an invisible wall. Oh, she said. It was not an oh of disappointment or an oh of surprise, but an oh that Amina had never heard before, scraped raw with an emotion Amina would not know herself until years later, when she understood what it was to long for someone, to ache for their smell and taste on you, to imagine the weight of their hips pinning yours so precisely that you craned up to meet your own invisible desire. She watched as Paige crossed Akhil's room, as she opened up his hamper and pulled out a forgotten T-shirt, crushing it to her face. Oh, she said again. Oh. And even if Amina didn't know what it was to love like that, to burn until your spine had no choice but to try to wind itself around an empty shirt, she understood for sure that the people who said that it was better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all were a bunch of dicks. Amina! How had she not even heard her mother coming up the stairs? Amina turned around and saw Kamala walking down the same hall Paige had stood in, yesterday's nightie bunched around her knees. She looked at the open door to Akhil's room and her face darkened. What are you doing in there? Nothing. Amina stammered, willing Paige to put down the T-shirt and step away from the hamper. But it was too late for that now. Kamala was already pushing past her and into the bedroom, suspicious pressed into her face. Paige turned to her, her own face filling with panic before she seemed to get a hold of herself. She placed the shirt on the bed, smoothed her dress down, stood tall. You must be Kamala, she said, offering a hand. I'm Paige. Kamala looked at her, confused. Paige swallowed. I'm Akhil's girlfriend. Kamala looked at Amina, the one he was going to prom with, Amina said. At this, Kamala stiffened a little, the needle of connection between prom and everything that had followed pricking some corner of her mind. I'm so sorry I didn't come to the funeral, Paige said, her hand lowered and her cheeks burning. That's why I'm here. I wanted to come by and see you both, you and Thomas, to tell you how much I loved your son. Kamala looked at her for a long time, gaze brewing with something Amina couldn't quite place, until she said, loved. Amina reached for Paige's elbow. Yes! Paige brushed her off, looking puzzled. Yes, of course! Kamala laughed once, hard, like a shovel hitting cement. Paige, Amina said, let me walk you down. Paige straightened at the suggestion, taller than either of them. She looked from one to the other, her face suddenly ripening with an expression Amina had seen her give Akhil 1,000 times. It was a look of hope, of compassion, of, God forbid, love. Amina, I'd like to speak with your mother alone. I really don't think that's a good... But it didn't matter what Amina thought because Paige was already saying, I loved your son more than I've ever loved anyone, in a low and steady voice, one sweet with the belief that there was something left for her to hold on to in this house, that two people in pain could find common ground. It was an opinion that was probably welcome across the Anderson dinner table, or at least taken seriously, but here, in this room, it was not welcomed, and Kamala's rigid face slammed away every word. Amala turned silently and fled, going back down the hallway, down the stairs, through the front door like a shot. She shut the front door behind her with a thump. Fucking Paige. Fucking Kamala. Fucking Akhil. Hey, she heard from her side, and she nearly screamed. Jamie waved from her periphery. He was standing awkwardly next to one of the planters, his face drawn with worry. Are you okay? She was not okay. Amina knew this for sure as she charged toward him, shaking like a comet and ready to flatten him. So she was surprised by how easily he caught her, his arms opening just enough for her to fit between, his shoulder landing firmly under her chin. Warm. He was warm. His heart thumped against her chest, and Amina shut her eyes, wanting to keep pushing forward until she somehow disappeared all the way into him. Why wasn't it weird to be held by Jamie Anderson? It's not like she had ever been held by anyone not related to her before, and none of them felt even a bit like Jamie, who was exactly her size and skinny, with skin hotter than she would have thought healthy. But it wasn't weird, even if she was half-stepping on one of his feet and his afro was scratching against her ear. It wasn't even weird when he said, "How's it going?" like they weren't already pressed together. It's horrible, she said. He hugged her tighter and whispered something. It sounded like, I'm sorry, but also sounded like, I'm worried. And she wanted to ask him which he meant because it seemed like a pretty big distinction. But just then the door opened and Paige came flying through it, eyes wet, mouth trembling. Go, Paige said. And Jamie and her sprang apart. Go, go, go. What? Jamie asked as she stumbled downstairs. Wait, what? But Paige was not waiting. She was running back toward the Andersons' Volvo, her dress flapping at the back of her knees. Jamie looked at Amina, his face clouding. You shouldn't have come, Amina said, and watched as this registered with a slight flinch, a tick behind his gaze. He backed away from her and ran after his sister. Long after the taillights had disappeared into the darkening street and the traces of Jamie's heat had evaporated from her skin, Amina stood on the porch, trying not to think about what Jamie probably thought of her now, or how good it felt to be hugged, or how Paige hadn't even looked at her on her way out. Her feet felt heavy going upstairs, heavier still as she walked down the hallway toward the slight stir of air in the corner of Akhil's room. Inside, Kamala was praying. That's what Amina thought as she stood in the hallway and she saw the unlikely pietà of her mother on Akhil's bed, the T-shirt strewn across her lap. Kamala's head was bent over, and something about this, the not being able to see her face, made Amina realize how much she missed her mother. She missed Kamala banging the cupboards in the morning. She missed her mother shouting, "Hey, dummies, rise and shines," from the bottom of the stairs. She missed her saying, "Oh, really?" when the dog burped loudly like they were having an actual conversation. And how sometimes she would come up and squeeze Amina's shoulders out of the blue, which used to feel like a poor excuse for a hug, but now, in memory, felt like sitting in front of a blazing fire with a world of snow falling outside. Ma, she stepped into the room. Her mother's head snapped up, and with a stab of fear, Amina realized her mistake. This was no noble sorrow, no reverential Mary. Kamala glared at her like a tiger hungered over fresh kill, and Amina found herself thinking, she will kill me now too. Not that Kamala had killed Akhil. No one had. Not Kamala, not Thomas, not Akhil himself, not even Amina. Except that standing there, looking at her mother, Amina was suddenly aware that they all had in some way. They all had. Kamala opened her mouth, dark eyes glinting. "Shut the door," she said. Thanks.
Thank you, Mira. It was really beautiful.